If you're looking for a classic dinner recipe that can be put together any day of the week, here's a great way to serve up a meal with near limitless variation. Today, I'll be using pork tenderloin, but this recipe works just as well with beef or any other red meat. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our pork tenderloin and we're going to spray it with a little bit of grapeseed oil. You can use olive oil if you want, but I prefer using grapeseed oil because it has a higher smoke point than most. Then we're going to grind on some pepper and some salt. And I'm just going to roll it around the board here to collect the last couple bits. And I'm just going to put that to the side for now while I cut some vegetables. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut some onion, and I'm going to cut that into a really small dice. This onion's going to be used for a red wine sauce that we're making with this. So I'm just going to use one whole onion. You probably don't have to use this much, but I like to use the onion to put on the vegetables and the meat as well. So we're going to put it in a saucepan. It doesn't really need any oil or anything to start. I'm just going to put in a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, and I'm going to let that cook for a few minutes at medium-high heat. A lot of the water is going to get sucked out, and that's going to continue the cooking process. And while that's cooking, we're going to grab a couple of carrots, and we're going to grab some potatoes. And I'm just going to roughly cut up the potatoes into wedges, and then I'm going to cut the carrots into similarly sized pieces. It really doesn't matter, if you like them cubes or if you like them in whatever kind of shape you want. It doesn't really matter for this recipe. So as you can see, the onions are really starting to give off a lot of water, and they're starting to brown up a little bit in the bottom of the pan. So when that starts to happen, you want to make sure that you give it a good stir, mix them around, and let the onions start to really brown up. Now I'm going to take out the hard white bit from a couple of tomatoes. We're going to roast these along with the vegetables. And I always like to get out a little bit of that extra white bit. And then we're going to add some red wine. To that, you're going to add about 1 tablespoon of beef bouillon base. And if you want a thicker sauce for this recipe, I'd use maybe half a cup of wine. If you like your sauce a bit more watery, 1.5 cups of wine. So we're just going to put the pork tenderloin, I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to put it in the pan at medium-high heat. And while that's starting to brown, I'm just going to put the vegetables into a bowl with some salt and pepper, a little bit of garlic, and a good bit of cumin. I really like cumin on these kind of vegetables, especially root vegetables. So once you start to see the pork tenderloin brown a little bit on each side, just give it a little turn. And then I'm just going to mix the vegetables and put them to the side. Now you're going to put it in a 375 degree oven until the internal temperature of the pork tenderloin reaches around 145 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. While everything's in the oven, you'll want to reduce your sauce down a little bit more. So make sure you get your sauce reduced to about a quarter of where it was before, and then you can add anywhere from 1 to 4 tablespoons of butter to create a nice thick sauce. Once the pork's reached its internal temperature, you're going to want to take it out and wrap it in some foil to let it rest. Most likely, your vegetables are going to still be a little bit tough, so you'll want to put them back in the oven for another 10 minutes or so. I think for this recipe it was around 10 to 15 minutes. And then your vegetables will be nice and tender by the time your pork tenderloin is done resting. And as you can see, when I cut through the pork tenderloin, it's pretty much a perfect medium. The meat's very tender and the vegetables are well done. You can spoon some of the onions that were cooked in the sauce. Grab a bite. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.